For those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Ben Matthews. I am the son of Larry and Megan Matthews. Some of you guys might know them. I'm 22 years old. I am a student here at UW Whitewater, studying accounting and finance. I've been attending Whitewater, or this CrossPointe, before I was born. So it's been a few years. And just real quick, a little bit of my testimony, right? So I grew up in this church. I grew up knowing about God, and I always believed in Him. But it wasn't until about 7th grade that I went to a conference and I realized that God has something so much more for us, and actually is a real person and wants to have a relationship with us. But then it probably wasn't until my senior year of high school that I really started to go through this next change, and He started giving me my identity and who I am. And I was baptized in the Holy Spirit and understood and went to that next level. And so it was at that point that I think my relationship with Jesus Christ and my walk as a Christian really became my own. Not my parents anymore, not the churches anymore, it really became mine. And I started down this track of just figuring out what it meant to live a life truly following after God. So that's kind of a little bit about who I am and where I come from. I just want to ask real quick, when you guys hear the word evangelism, what comes to mind? What do you guys think? Like, what pops in your head? What's the picture?
Street evangelism.
Yeah?
Talking to people on the street about Jesus.
Yeah?
TV preachers.
TV preachers? Okay. Yeah. No, I mean, that's pretty much, that's what we've seen, I think, for the past, 40, 50 years, and that's what's been talked about a lot, and honestly, I think the church tends to glorify that sometimes, or talk about how romantic it is to have people out there on the street and pray for people, and they save 50 people on the street sometimes, and sometimes we get caught up and think that that's the only way to evangelize to people, and that is exactly what we need to do, and then we hear people talking about how you need to go do that all the time. But I'm just going to be completely honest with you. For me, that has never worked. I've tried that. I've gone out into the streets. I've done it in the suburbs of Chicago. I've done it in downtown Minneapolis. I've done it in Milwaukee. And I've done it here on campus, here in Whitewater. And when I just try to walk up to people and say, hi, how are you? What's your name? What do you do? And then say, so if you die tonight, do you know where you're going? And people are just like, okay, And oftentimes they'll talk to you and they'll tell you because they have no clue who you are, right? And they're like, sure, I'll share my honest opinion of what's going on. And then sometimes they just nod and say and to get you to move along. And then sometimes they actually are really interested. You have a really good conversation about God, and those are really exciting, really fun. And then they sometimes you even have the opportunity to pray for those people, right? And then you pray for them, and you get really excited. And you say, okay, awesome. Well, I'll see you Sunday, right? You want to come to church with me on Sunday? And they'll be like, yeah, okay. And then you never see those people again, ever. It's been kind of my experience. And I really didn't, obviously, I was doing in Chicago. I don't live in Chicago, so I didn't have a whole lot of follow-through. But I really noticed this in Whitewater. When I would go to the dorms, and I would say, hey, come to crew on Tuesday. I can't wait to see you there. And then it just, didn't work. And I didn't see them. And maybe a month later, I would see them, but they were just, literally... I don't want to talk to that guy again. He dove in way too deep, way too fast. That has traditionally been my experience. And I want to say that that's been my experience, and I'm not saying that is completely wrong. You should. People definitely have been called to do exactly that type of evangelism. There are people that have that gifting. I'm just saying that is not my gifting. That is not how God has taught me or showed me how I need to go out and evangelize to people. And so really the rest of this conversation that I want to have with you guys today is it's just about a different way of doing it, and how some people, when you don't have success in that way, don't feel discouraged, because that is okay. There is another way to do it. There are more ways than just that. So really I just want to encourage you guys with that. We'll keep going into this. I guess I want to go into, have you guys ever heard the term relational evangelism? Mm-hmm. Okay. You can tell because they all went to crew, and they talk about it at crew. But no, so for those of you who don't know, it's, I think, summed up pretty well by what Kevin said in church 2 weeks ago, where he said, you stop making people targets, and you start making people your friend. And it's simply that. You go and you have a relationship with someone, and you befriend someone, and ultimately, through that friendship, you gain permission to share the gospel with them. And that's the key to relational, and that's the very basic way to do it, right? And so like, before I get into some of the practical tools of like how to actually go and do it, I want to talk about like what's the importance of it and why we should. I think it's very important to focus on this with a lot of people. So when you're truly like relationally evangelizing, you don't even have it on your mind that you are. At least in my experience, that's how it's been. I've never gone up to someone and said, "Oh, they look kind of interesting. I think I want to be friends with them." And then like 6 months from now, I'll talk to them about God once I really know about them. Like that's just never happened. You know, it's more like I'm sitting in class next to the same dude for like every day, because for whatever reason in college, when you don't have assigned seats, you sit in the same seat. It's a really weird thing. But, so you see this person, twice a week for like a month, and then all of a sudden, the teacher asks you to pair up, so then you gotta like start talking to this guy and get to know him. And then just all of a sudden you start finding out that like, oh, this person's pretty cool. And then you can keep it really shallow and really surfacey, and that's what a lot of college students tend to do, but if any of you know my mom, I was raised by her, and she doesn't do that. You don't stop there. You definitely got to go deeper. And so I just naturally had this just habit where I would just start asking people more questions about them. Right, and then you become friends with them, right? And here's the point where relational evangelism really comes in, where all of a sudden you befriend this person, and you get to know them really well, and then it becomes personal. Now all of a sudden, you're not just like on this, you're just not just talking to random people like, hey, you should know Jesus because, everyone told me that I should be out here to spread God's word. And like, I do really want you to know about it, but I don't know you, so I don't have any like connection with you. But now all of a sudden you do have that connection with this person. And you go like, wow, like John is a really cool dude. And I think he's going to do some awesome stuff in his life. And I care about him a lot. And I really want him to know who Jesus is. Because in this course of getting to know him, I've found out the goods and the bads of his life, and I've seen and I've heard that he has some hurt, And I know that Jesus has set me free from my shackles, and he set me free from some of the burdens that I've had, and he's healed me of the wounds that I've had from other people, and I want that for John, And that's literally where I found myself this past year, and recognizing this and realizing this. Exactly, I have one of my best buddies that I hang out with all the time. He's insanely funny, and he's insanely smart, and one of the coolest guys I know. But he doesn't really know who God is. And he's not really sure about God. He's not really sure he wants to know about God. And that really hurts, because a lot of his pain is actually caused by a lot of people in the church. A lot of people in his past really just screwed him up and made it very legalistic. And so I just started to get to know this guy, and I found out that, yeah, I like this guy. And then all of a sudden, now I have this desire where I really want him to know God, because of exactly what I said, I care about this guy, and I know that he can get healing from this, and he can have so much more joy and happiness if he just knew who God was. That's where I think a lot of the desire and the love comes up from. And ultimately, I'll put this out there, like, I know it's not going to happen tomorrow. I know it's probably not going to happen a year from now. I'm going to go move in with this guy in like 2 weeks, and it's probably not going to happen in the next couple weeks or months. It's probably going to be years down the road. Because that's what a big thing with this is, it takes time. And I'll talk more about that later, but basically, like, I just know that this is my hope, and I'm going to try to plant as many seeds in this guy's life as I can. And ultimately, it's his free will, so he might not choose God, but I'm going to try as much as I can and fight for this guy. And he kind of knows that I am. He doesn't know to what extent, but that's what I'm doing, right? So that's my heart now, but the only reason that's my heart now is because that wasn't always my heart, okay? So I gotta be completely honest with you guys, like, growing up in high school and going to youth group here, my heart was definitely in a very different place. And I didn't really realize this until years later, but I was in a place, this might sound kind of messed up to you, but I was in a place where I wanted to be people's saviors. I would evangelize to people and want them to come to church, because then we would have some common ground of God. And I wanted them to know how cool I was and how good of a person I was, so they should like me because I'm a good person. And then like we can be best buds because of that, you know? And then because of that, like in my mind, it was a perfect solution. And I didn't realize I was doing it. It was all subconscious, right? But then what would happen was, then they would catch me messing up, or I would get mad at them for messing up. And there's Christian walk, which we all mess up a lot, right? And then all of a sudden, or maybe they truly would get to know God, even though I was trying to stand in the way of that, and God would take them beyond where I was as a Christian, and I would get so upset, because it was like, what the heck? Like, I wanted to be, you know, their mentor, their mentee, and their teacher, almost, so to speak. I'm like 17 years old, right? So at that point, I figured out the world, right? That's where I'm at. Every 17-year-old guy has the world figured out. Luckily now, at like 22, I figured out that I can do nothing.
Good.
But that's where I was in high school, right? And I didn't realize this. And like I said, it wasn't until my senior year that God started giving me my own identity that I kind of started seeing this. And I think that's a key to all of this, is having your identity in Christ. And it's something that I could talk about, this piece on identity and having identity in Christ, and like people have written tons of books about it. I could talk about it for hours. I have decades yet to learn about it. But I'll just kind of say this. Is this something that it's very important that you're seeking out with God if you don't know and you haven't been already? And it's something that like we all struggle with at times and we all waver with at times. But the cool thing is every time you do, you bounce back faster and you bounce back stronger. And God shows you a little bit more of who you are and the purpose that He's given you. So I'll just leave it there with that. And instead, I will try to get my notes to turn on, but I guess I'll just ignore that. I want to dive into the other part of like how to actually have relationships, right? So like there are some keys to actually making relationships work. They say don't rely on technology because it will always fail you, and that is true. So when it comes to like actually going in, here are the practical tips and tools that I kind of want to share with you. Having a relationship with someone, like a lot of us think that we're pretty good at it. And some of us are actually really good at it. I mean, like, I'll just like straight out say, like, Jacob Sheets is someone that I have learned from because he's really good at this. And like, I call it out. So like, if you want to like learn how to do relationships, kind of like stand back and watch Jacob Sheets. He does a pretty good job at it, you know? But oftentimes then all of a sudden you realize that I've learned that I was actually pretty bad at it. And I only learned that by failing a ton of times. And so for, you know, all those people out there, I've had to make a lot of apologies for just like, wow, I did that wrong, I'm sorry. But instead of me just keep telling you where I am, where I feel in this, let me tell you, like, here's some tools and stuff that I've actually, like, picked up. Oh, she's gonna come join us. Little kids are really cute. So some of those practical tools. The biggest thing that you need to know with this is it's gonna take time. And you really just gotta get that, like, out there. Like, this relationship is gonna take time. It's not gonna be weeks. It might not even be months, it might take years, honestly. And I think probably the people who might understand this the best are parents, because they understand that their kids, like this is like an 18-year, 20-year stretch that I have where I'm building this relationship, where I'm getting to know this kid and finding out all the nuances. And also I'm like teaching this kid, but I'm building this relationship with this kid for 20 years, right? And so it's like, it's not all about just doing it in a week. It's not all about doing it in a month, you know? It's a long-term investment here. And so, and what I want you to apply that to is now more your coworkers, right? The people that we see in our Mondays, right? The people that we see in our classes and in our school. Okay. So then, and that's a big thing that you just get that out there. The next thing is, and this is the part that like is really hard for people, and we all think we're really good at it, and we're not, is listening more than you talk. So this is the practical application of it. Seriously, like going and engaging with people and just trying to listen to people and hear people. And that's the part like I was really bad at, because I was that kid that would go into a situation and I'd be like, hi, who are you? Well, it's nice to meet you. Okay, cool. And like, guess what I do? Like, I'm this really cool person. Like, I'm studying these like 4 things, and like I got this job, and like, you know, like here are all the cool things. Here's my resume. Like, look at me, impressed. You know, and then I would be like, you should like me because of how cool I am. And I think often we find ourselves doing that unintentionally. We don't mean to. But like, as humans, we kind of like to talk about ourselves. And like, you know, if you find the right person to talk to, there's nothing like wrong about that. But you need to realize that when you're getting to know someone, that's not what you need to do. If you're trying to do that, you're trying to impress someone, like you're trying to tell them the things that you've done because you want them to be impressed with you, that's all they'll be. They'll just be impressed with you. But the difference is here we're trying to get people to relate to you. Because ultimately you want to be able to get into this position where you have a relationship with someone that is deep enough that you can talk to them about spiritual matters. And that they feel comfortable with you sharing about deeper stuff. You want to get to this point in your relationship where you actually care about them. And it sounds weird, but it's so easy to not. And so that's kind of where this comes in, of like how to actually practice this listening, right? So this listening comes in where you ask questions, and you start off, again, this is something I learned from Jacob Sheets. This is great. You start off with the very typical, hi, how are you, what do you do, that kind of stuff. And then you ask where they're from, because then when you ask where they're from, you can ask about their family, And then you try to somehow transition and ask about passions and dreams and desires. And you need to just listen, and you just need to let them talk, okay? And then the next part is going on, and sometimes, before I move on, sometimes you got to be cautious about that when you're asking, because not everyone has an awesome family, and not everyone has passions and dreams. And so this is where like the first conversation probably won't be anything about that. The first conversation will just be, hi, how are you? And then the second conversation will probably be, hi, how are you, where are you from? And then the next conversation will be that. And it's weeks. This is where, like I said, it takes time, right? These conversations take time. And then all of a sudden you get to this point where you find out about them, and you find out some of their dreams and desires, and you've learned this about them. And then all of a sudden you start asking more questions. And here's the reason for all this. To get to someone's like level where you can talk about spiritual stuff, is you have to understand first their face, which is the hi, how are you? Then their soul, which is the like, my family is this, I grew up here, and this really hurt when I was growing up. And you didn't know who they are and their soul and their identity. Because then, once you understand that, that's where you go, okay, I know how to salt this person. We talked about in church about undersalting and oversalting. That's where you get into this point. Where you can know that. Maybe you don't start salting yet. And maybe you do. Maybe there's tons of times they've already started asking you about stuff. Maybe not. Maybe you just keep listening. You just keep accepting who they are. Good, bad, and the ugly. And then it's later, once all of a sudden you understood their soul and they know that you truly care, that's when you can start talking to them about spiritual stuff. And that's when you can start asking them about the spiritual stuff. Because they've built this relationship with you and they know that you truly care because you've listened to them, right? And during this listening period, just know this, they're not going to ask you questions back, all right? Like some people will, some people are really good at that, but not everyone will. And you just got to be okay with that. Be like, all right, so I'm asking this person about their day, and then I'm asking about their family, and then I'm asking about their passions and dreams, and they're not going to ask me about my passions and dreams, and I just got to be okay with that and not share that with them. Eventually they will. And that's where you get that, but it's not going to be at first, and it's going to take a while to do that. And you just got to be okay with that. And it kind of hurts at first, but have grace for them, right? That's like the point of all this, is having grace. And so then once you have that, that's when you find out about these things, and that's when you find out the lives, the goods, the bads, and the uglies. And then you can just love them through that, and just accept them through that, and that's when the spiritual stuff comes in, right? Okay, and so those are some practical steps, right? And the next, like I said, that first practical step of listening more than you talk. The next one, the big one, is going in and being there when it counts. And so a big thing is sacrificing time. People, especially here in America, we are so controlling of our time. We are so just like, it's my time, I'm going to do what I want with it. Other people can do what they please, right? If it's convenient for me, yeah, sure, maybe I'll hang out. Like, it's what I want to do, sure, yeah, maybe. But like, it is not something we practice. And here as Christians, like, we actually tend to do, like, because we're told to like help people, like, some people tend to do a pretty good job of like being there for other people, but some, like, we don't know. And that's a cultural change that like we need to be very intentional about, otherwise it won't shift things, right? And so like maybe the example is like you have a coworker that you know that you've talked to at lunch quite a few times, and or you've talked to during breaks, and you know them like decently well, but you don't know them deeper. You don't know their dreams and passions and desires. You don't know what they're looking forward to in retirement. You don't know what they are scared about, what their kids are going on. And so that's where it's like, then you need to go take that next step and go, okay, like, let's go grab coffee, and let's talk about this. And let's just start off really small and simple, right? And then or maybe it's another instance where you have a buddy who just broke up with his girlfriend and he needs someone to help him move out of his house. And he doesn't ask you to help, but you just show up and you just say, hey, I'm helping you, and then you gotta go rent a U-Haul, which none of you know how to do that. You gotta drive all over. This might be a personal story, I'm not sure. But no, it was so cool. It's so cool in those moments, because in the first time it's like, oh man, I gotta sacrifice this weekend. But let me just tell you, going through that, it feels like so good to serve someone that way and love someone that way. Be able to just say like, no, you're important. Like I'm just gonna give you time. And that's, and maybe we'll talk about deep stuff, maybe we won't. Maybe we'll just, whatever, we'll just be silent because you're processing all this over here. Or maybe there's the other thing where like, your coworker has their kid and it's their first year birthday party and they invited you and you have no clue, you don't know anyone who's gonna be there. There's a really good Packer game on, so you really don't wanna go. But it's the right thing to do is to go show up and be there. And don't worry, the Packer game will most likely be on in the corner, But like, the people are more important here, right? And that's what you're showing them, and that's the difference that's not cultural here. That's the difference, and that's the big thing that like all of this, and this is where, it gets back to as Christians, we're told to be of the world, or not, sorry, let me say this correctly, be in the world but not of the world, right? And we're supposed to be Christians in there, and that's how you do that. That's the practical application of it. And so it doesn't happen every week, it doesn't happen every day, but when those moments come up, especially in the beginning, you need to be very intentional about it, especially when you're first starting a relationship with someone. Because you say no at the first time, they'll probably never ask you again. Or like, and maybe you really truly can't. Maybe like your wife and you have a date and like you need to honor your wife, that's fine, but you say, okay, when's the next time I can meet you? And you're very intentional about that. Okay? And so that's key to, I think, all this, because it's when you start actually acting that people realize your words are not just falling. So, there's one other thing too that I want to say, and this is really practical too, when it comes to how to listen to people. I know I'm kind of backtracking, but this is really important. It's the little things like body language that people also don't like. Some people naturally have it, and some people don't know. But everyone can practice, and everyone can learn it. Okay? And this is where like body language is super important when you're trying to talk to people, and trying to make them feel like they're actually heard. And so you can do simple things like creating eye contact. Like Mrs. Coots has been really good at making eye contact with me this whole time. So I know she's paying attention, And so like the next thing is then the smile, right? Is not just the smile, but the smile with your whole face and your eyes. I know this sounds weird, but it is so true. When you can actually smile and love and like show me like I actually love you. Like that's the thought and like the feeling that you have towards them when they're telling you this deep thing. And then like the next thing is like honestly as easy as leaning forward and just being like, I'm leaning into you. Mrs. Coots has also been that. she's got this down. But yeah, seriously, when it's those kind of things, there's those minor body language pieces that really someone goes, oh, they're actually paying attention to me, right? And then that last thing that's really important for us millennials is turning your phone on silent, turning, and putting it down, upside down, so you don't see it, it's not a distraction. And that is probably the thing that I've noticed the most with other college students, where I've been like, they actually are noticing that I'm paying attention to them when they see that happen. Right. And they're like, shoot, we're gonna engage. It's a very serious thing, and that was something my mom always told me growing up. She's like, my job right now is to pay attention to this person. That this person is more important than whatever else is going on. And if I can make them feel this, it will make them feel loved, and it will make them feel heard, and that is where the relationship starts right there. And so it's that kind of stuff, right? And then also, don't forget to actually listen to what they're saying, like respond appropriately, and all that stuff. So those are like some of the most practical tools, how to go about like starting a relationship and continuing a relationship. And some of you guys are like, duh, man, I've been doing this from day one. That's great. I'm glad you guys have. But like some people have no clue, and some people like have no clue, and then they don't practice it, and like or they hear this and they don't practice this. So that's like the biggest thing is when you guys are engaging with people, truly try to practice this when you go in. Like I don't know, like they will hear this. I love it when college, like this is college class textbook stuff that I'm sharing on some of this stuff, and it's like people hear this, but then they never practice it and they never pay attention. So please just like actually try this, and you'll be shocked with the results of this. And if you don't know, like if you're a little skeptical of me, that's fine. Just like I said, go find someone who's good at relationships and watch them. Pay attention to what they do and kind of how they do that, and you'll see it. You know, it's the same way people who say you want to be a millionaire, go hang out with the millionaires and do what the millionaires do. Do the same thing with relationships, okay? And so like I said, a lot of this I know hasn't been exactly about how do I engage and have that conversation about God. I haven't done a lot of that conversation, but I think honestly, I don't have a whole lot of advice for you on that, other than this is where like the relationship that you've created, you'll know. You know, like the biggest thing is then you pray about this, right? That's probably, I would say, like the last step here is you live consistently and you pray about it. You know, and you, like, that is something that I definitely do with, especially new people, and I just go, and maybe we're not talking about God at all, but we are maybe talking about God, and I just say, all right, God, like after the conversation, Holy Spirit, whatever you needed to be with you, let that stick. Let that be there. But anything of myself, just let that be forgotten. You know? And so that's what I would say is probably really important about all this, and you'll know. You know? My mom always has this nice little rhyme that says, try your best and God will do the rest. You know? But it is so true. When you try to do that, and you work at it, and you are intentional with someone, and you invest in them, you will see seeds. You know, you might not always see the plant bloom and full, but you'll see some stuff start to sprout. So, I guess at this point, I have some stuff to hand out to you guys, because I wanted to give you guys some just ideas of like how to actually maybe some questions to ask and stuff. And so, unfortunately, I think I only have like 15 copies, and there are more than 15 people in the room. I guess I wasn't expecting that to be interesting. So thank you guys.
Good when people here.
No, but
Thank you.
honestly, these are just some questions that once you've gotten past the beginning, this is how to break through the next level. And sometimes it's a little uncomfortable, but it is like, this is the next step. Some of these questions, and sometimes, and you'll notice as you're looking through the questions, they're not like super deep. I think the first one is, what do you miss most of being a child, right? And it sounds so weird and like not that important, but all of a sudden you ask someone, you find out something about their childhood, and you find out a little bit about who they are and what has made them the way they are today, right? And so it's that kind of stuff that you're looking for and trying to understand. Because when you understand them, like I said, then you know how to solve them. Too much or too little, you know what the appropriate is. So, I'm supposed to do a Q&A session. Do you guys have any like specific questions about any of this, or like examples, or help with some of this? Because if not, I got an idea of what to do. Yeah, that's right. Oh. Yeah, what's up?
My question is, I can think through my life and how people were there in different seasons for different purposes. And I know who was integral in leading me to the place where I accepted Christ as my Savior. And my question for myself has always been, there's that desire to be Christ, but I don't always know if I'm supposed to be that point person, or if I'm supposed to be the person getting the ground fertile and loving them and praying and interceding and all of these other things. And there's someone else who's supposed to be that person who actually leads them to Christ. I'm not trying to cop out, but it's just something I'm always wondering.
Yeah.
If, I pray for those opportunities. There's people who have been in my life who I do have relationships with. Some who already know the Lord and have walked away. Some who don't know the Lord and have no desire to. But I know that I'm building relationships with them in my job. But I'm always praying, and I'm always not sure if I'm the person who's why I'm sitting here, who's supposed to be the one that's going to have that opportunity or not. Do you have any thoughts on that?
No, I do, actually. So, I think, honestly, the answer that I would say is like, why can't you be both? And I think in those instances, yeah, you might not be. It's a very depends answer. Like, you might not be that person that does reap the seed, but yeah, at least be doing both. And like, that's where the point of the relationship is, right? In my opinion. You just have to start with, you do need to start tilling up some fertile soil and praying intercession and creating that relationship. And that's where maybe the first 3 years, I'm trying with this one guy right now, I'm just trying to find fertile soil. I'm just trying to find a place where I can maybe plant a seed that will take root. I don't know. But I know, and then maybe I'll be there in the season 5 years down the road where I will be able to actually see that, and maybe I won't. So I think ultimately for like people you don't know, yeah, you do have to start at that point of, we're talking about the parable of the sower and the seed, right? Where the seeds will fall into rocky soil and they'll spurt up quickly but then die out right away, or other areas where the birds will eat it, rather than the moments that it will fall into the soil and actually take root and grow. And so I don't have a direct answer of like, well, yes, you should be the point person. I don't have that answer. And that's where it depends with that person, right? You know, if you naturally have a connection with this person, you find yourself very compatible with this person, then you probably are able to dig deep with that person. You're able to not only till fertile ground and plant seeds and see a reward. With people that like you are compatible with, it's more likely that will be the case. It won't be the case every time. But if nothing else, you've made their life better. And doing this, and by loving them, and by having this relationship with them, you've at least tilled up dirt, and you've at least planted some seeds, and there's nothing bad about that. You should at least be doing that. And that's where the boldness comes in, and you need to pray and ask for God about that. I can't tell you that it's 6 months and 2 days down the road that you should be having this conversation, and here's the script, ready, set, go. You know, unfortunately, I can't do that. But that's where it comes down to. That's where understanding and like knowing the Holy Spirit and allowing God to show you that. And actually, you brought up a really good point that I do want to address. That like it's not a cop out, but it can be a cop out for a lot of people. And that's a warning I want to caution people to, is like, you find yourself, and I've been guilty of this, where I'm like, well, I'm gonna create a relationship with someone, and someday I'll share about God, someday I'll get there, but then really what's going on in your heart is you're like, I'm scared to share about God, because then maybe I'll lose him as a friend, and that'll hurt. And so I just want to say 2 things. One, that's where the identity piece comes in, right? So knowing who you are in Christ. Because ultimately, this is a thing that's really, I struggle with still, but this is a truth. I remember Kevin telling me at like 18 years old that like, even if you lose the whole world and you have no friends, you have nobody, as long as you have Jesus, life will be okay. And life will be good. And it's a really hard truth, because it's like, we're human, like that doesn't make sense, that doesn't compute, but that is kind of reality. And that's something that like you do need to know through that, of not copping out and not saying like, I might lose this person as a friend. And also, let me share you my personal experience. When those moments have come up, and I've been in relationships where I've been really close to them, and I've truly cared about them, and they know that I care, then when I have had those conversations about God, we have totally disagreed. But it's okay. I don't lose them as a friend. I just don't keep salting, obviously. I pull back. And that's where you go into that mode of like, okay, I'm just going to be friends with them, and we're just going to stay at this level, because obviously they're not ready to go down here. That's touching something too sensitive, too deep, too fast. They need more time. I need to keep tilling up dirt. And then maybe years down the road, maybe it won't be me. Maybe it'll be someone else who will do that. So I kind of hope that answers your question. It kind of answers a slightly different thought that I wanted to address. So yeah. So the exercise I wanted to kind of have us practice was exactly actually kind of messing with these sheets. So if you can try to find, I know a bunch of us probably know each other, but if you can try to find someone that you don't know, you should engage with them, meet them, get to know them, and ask them a question or 2 of this. And try to just really practice the listening things. And it might sound silly, and it might sound goofy. I can see she's looking really nervous over here, but it's okay, don't worry. It'll be good, all right? So why don't we do that? I'm going to turn this recording on, because I think we got what we want, all right? Unless anyone else has any other questions before I do that. No?